ขอต้อนรับกลับมาในช่วงที่ 2 ของรายการนี้นะคะแน่นอนเลยรายการของเรานะคะก็มีการจับประเด็นคุณผู้ชมคะวันนี้เนี่ยมาจับกัน ขอโทษค่ะเทค่ะ ลิ้นพันกันค่ะ โอเคต่อเลยคุณผู้ชมคะขอต้อนรับกลับมาในช่วงที่ 2 ของรายการของเรานะคะวันนี้เรายังอยู่กับอาจารย์การับค่ะสวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์การับอาจารย์การับคะ I just introduce you to our audience that you are a professional and expert on strategy and innovation. So today you have to tell us more about it in details, would you?
I'd love to. Thank you.
All right. First, though, would you please tell us about the program that you are, working on right now?
Okay.
The MME program. What is that?
So it's a master's program on entrepreneurship, and this is a new program for Bangkok University. It's part of the business school on management and entrepreneurship, and it's a partnership. The program is created in partnership with Babson College, which is Babson College is based in Boston, in the United States, and is generally considered the #1 business school for entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so this is a very exciting program for the two universities to partner in creating this program in masters in entrepreneurship.
So experience from the United States and the world are sharing between Thailand as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Wow, it's a great
Yeah.
opportunity.
It's a wonderful opportunity, I think, for both schools.
So students and teachers come and go.
So it's a collaboration, and I just finished teaching at BUSIM yesterday, and I was teaching for the last 5 days, and I arrived from Boston to do that, and I'm now going to go back and teach my students
In
at
Babson.
Yes.
Wow.
So
This is like a moving all around.
Yes.
Everything is like 2014 moves.
That's right. and students from BUSIM were in Boston for 2 months, and I met them there in August. They were taking classes over there. So they take classes here in Bangkok and in Boston, and the professors also travel from Boston to Bangkok to teach.
Wow.
So
speaking of teaching and classes they take with you,
yes.
you are focusing on strategy, innovation. First, let me talk about strategy.
Yeah.
And could you please maybe extend it a little bit more about strategy of what it is?
What strategy is. So think of, maybe I'll talk about what strategy is and what strategy is not.
Right.
In order to explain that, okay? So you know how in any business you have functions. So you have manufacturing, you have marketing, you have sales, you have finance, and these are different from strategy. Strategy is something, so these are disciplines and functions that are part of an organization. Strategy is something that covers the whole organization. So if you are the CEO of a company, you are responsible for strategy. If you are an entrepreneur and you are starting a new business, then you are responsible for strategy. So what it is a complete view of the company. And the idea is strategy is a set of decisions that is supposed to help you win in the marketplace. It's supposed to help you serve customers, compete, and in the process make a profit. It's supposed to help you. Many companies have a vision or a goal that this is what we want to become in 3 years or 5 years, right? And strategy is the means of getting to that vision over that time frame. So think of it as something that affects the entire company. It affects the future of the company. It affects the profits of a company. And it's a set of decisions. It's not one decision, but it's a set of decisions that are mutually reinforcing, mutually supportive.
Wow. So as a company, understandable that you might have other people help you, build that strategy.
Yes.
But being an entrepreneur, you're quite alone for the start.
Yeah, I think you have more responsibility if you're starting a new business because people are looking to you for the vision and for the strategy, and so maybe the responsibility is greater for an entrepreneur, particularly if you're starting something brand new.
So you would say it's really, really important for an entrepreneur.
I think it is indispensable. It is, you cannot succeed without having a strategy.
Well, how to make a good one? How to come up with an effective one?
How to come up with a good one? There are many reasons, many factors you have to take into account, and one of the things to keep in mind is that there's no formula for making a strategy.
Right.
And most things in business involve making a judgment, right? Because you never have all the information that you need. The world keeps changing, and sometimes you have to place a bet, right? And so there's no formula for making strategy, but there are frameworks that we can use to make strategy. But one of the key aspects of strategy is that think of it like a jigsaw puzzle, right? So in a jigsaw puzzle, you have pieces that fit together to create a picture, right? Think of strategy in a very similar way. Strategy is one piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and the world around you is the other piece. And the two pieces must fit. And when the two pieces fit well, you tend to be successful. So the role of the person, whether it's the entrepreneur or the CEO, big company, small company, doesn't matter. The goal is to come up with a strategy that fits well with the nature of the world surrounding you, with the nature of the industry and so forth.
Well, how do you know, and how do you really think of one that would fit? Because for example, you're an entrepreneur, your first day,
Yeah,
you're in a planning stage.
yeah.
When it comes to strategy, how do you look at things and how do you put things together for being an entrepreneur yourself?
Yeah, so a good place to start is to try to understand the world outside. So let's call the world outside the external landscape. So if you're an entrepreneur in Bangkok and you are, let's say, in the food business, right? Well, the food business is actually a global business, and so what you have to do is maybe understand the nature of the global economy. Look to see where are your current customers, right? Are there places where you currently don't operate, but where you could operate? So you look at customers, you look at the global economy, you look at competition, and there are several such things that you look into, especially if let's say you have a business exporting things, you have to look at regulations. You look at all of these things, and then you have to make a judgment as to what your company should do, right? Because your company should, number one, serve a customer, and the customer should feel excited and doing business with you, right? Because every customer has many choices, so why should they go for you, right? So you have to have what we call a customer value proposition. Why should the customer come to you rather than go to somebody else?
Correct.
And so part of your strategy is trying to, number one, create something that your customer values, right? And you have to be careful that you should not target everyone as your customer. So, you look at the market and you say, well, who is my customer, right? So part of it is really trying to figure out in some thoughtful, creative way who your customer is and what their particular needs are, and that you can serve. And then the other part of the picture is to try and say, well, how do I, I'm not the only one in the industry, there are other people in the industry as well. And so how do I differentiate myself from others? And so those are some of the aspects that go into creating sort of strategy.
But it sounds very, very similar to planning. It's like a thin line.
Yeah. Strategy and planning are sometimes the terms that are used interchangeably. So planning is really being prepared, right? And I think a common misconception about planning is that once you have a plan, people see it as something that is very rigid, that it is fixed. And we should not look at it that way, because the world changes too fast.
Right.
And companies always plan, and it's not just companies in mature industries, but you look at fast-moving companies like Google, for example. Google is always thinking ahead.
Correct.
Right? And you hear all of these stories about, Google is putting money in driverless cars and Google Glass
Right.
and all kinds of things. And these are really experiments that companies do to prepare for the future. So strategy and planning may seem very similar, but I think we tend to use the word strategy more often than planning, because planning has earned a very bad reputation as being something that is very rigid, and it's not meant to be that way. It's just about being prepared. And when every business deals with uncertainty, deals with risk, and this is about thinking ahead so that you're not taken by surprise, and it's about improving your chances of success. So if you think ahead a little bit, entrepreneurship involves taking a risk, but the risk can be managed. Some types of risk can be reduced, and that's what thinking ahead, strategic thinking involves.
Such as what kind of risk did you refer to?
So
That entrepreneur would face when starting a business.
Okay, so let's take a particular type of risk that I was discussing with my BUSIM students yesterday, right? And
Sure.
what I was telling them is that as an entrepreneur, if you do something really new, and you're excited about it, right? You love what you do, you're passionate about it, and it's very common to fall into this trap of believing that everyone else, especially your intended customers, share your passion, share your enthusiasm
Right.
for what you have created, something totally new.
You're like blinded for a while.
You're blinded. It really is. And it's a funny thing that there's an advantage to being blinded, because you continue ahead, right?
Right.
You plow ahead and you do things that are necessary. But the flip side is that sometimes entrepreneurs fall into this trap of not realizing that anytime you do something new, customers will actually be very slow to buy what you are selling. And there are some exceptions to that, but in most instances, the newer the thing is that you are doing, the slower the adoption rate. So one of the things we teach is that adoption of your product or service, if it's innovative, has the shape of the letter S, right? So if there's a graph, over time, sales tend to be low and flat, and then gradually they increase. And the key is to recognize that the flat part can be very long, but if you are careful and thoughtful, maybe you can shorten it.
A slim S.
Yes, that's right. Yes, a slimmer S, that's right. And so that is the kind of a risk that you cannot eliminate it, but you might be able to reduce it. And very often people don't think of that, and so they fall into this trap. They launch something that is completely new to the world, and then the customers don't buy it.
Wow. So that's quite a risk for like someone starting their own business, like entrepreneur,
Yeah.
young people. But what do you suggest, in the process of thinking and planning their dreams, drawing everything out? Because sometimes teenagers, they're in this 2014 thing, so they're looking, for modern things, for technology, for new stuff.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard to put it into the market. How
That's
could they
right.
make that happen with strategies?
I think the key to that, in my view, is to recognize that every business, whether it's high tech or low tech, every business provides a solution, right? So whether you are innovative or not innovative, it doesn't matter. Every business is a solution. And you say, okay, what problem am I solving? Whose problem am I really solving? And do those people want that problem to be solved? And are they willing to pay me for it? Right? So, for every entrepreneur, no matter what your age, no matter what kind of business it is, high tech, low tech, all across the board, you have to have a very deep understanding of your customer, who your customer is, and then try to say, well, what problem do they have that I can solve, right? And then you create something that solves that. Now, very often, people don't do that. They are interested in something, right? So they are crazy about something, they're interested in something, so they say, well, I'm going to create a business around it.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, right? And what happens is that it may be possible that there are very few people out there who share your particular passion and interest and view, right? So you have to have empathy. In other words, you need to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and look at the world from your customer's perspective. And then you may discover that maybe what you are creating, maybe the customer is not interested. Or what you are creating, the customer already has several choices, so why should they go for you? Right? So, I mean, if you open a new restaurant or a new nightclub, I mean, there's no shortage of restaurants and nightclubs. So why should someone come to you, right? But on the other hand, if you are creating a high technology product that's completely new, sometimes people don't buy it because they have no idea about the value of what you are doing. And there are lots of examples of failures where people get so focused on innovation, they don't realize that that's the wrong way to look at it. Okay, you should think of innovation as a solution first. And the solution that should solve a worthwhile problem that somebody wants that problem to be solved and will therefore pay you money for it.
You have brought up a very, very interesting issue, topic, innovation. We're going to be taking that into the next break.
Okay.
But before we end this break, you have to tell us, as the world changes really, really, really fast this time around, how do you keep your strategy up to date, always ready to wow customers and wow people?
So your strategy is something that should be flexible, right? And it's a very delicate balance. If you change your strategy too frequently, you will never benefit from it because it takes time for the effect to come through. All right? So if you change your strategy too quickly, too often, it doesn't help. If you don't change your strategy at all, then you can be left behind because the world around you changes. And so let me, to answer that question, a lot of people argue, both CEOs with a lot of experience and people who do research on organizations to understand what drives success. They say success requires having an external orientation, right? So what does that mean? What it means is that if you're an entrepreneur or you're the CEO of a company, your mind and your attention should always be on the world outside and how it's changing. Right? And it's very difficult to do because you're trying to run a business. So it's very easy to get sucked into the day-to-day things of running a business. But the task of a CEO, the task of an entrepreneur is to make decisions that fit well with the realities of the external landscape, with the realities of the world outside. And so the best way to deal with a fast-changing world is to be really attentive to how the world is changing and then make a judgment, okay, what do I need to change in order to succeed in this changing world?
So CEOs and business owners to be working as in like staying in the future.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
All the time.
Yeah, to have, it's a balancing act. You got to keep an eye on the present to make sure your business succeeds today.
Correct.
And at the same time, to keep part of your mind should be in the future so that you're preparing your organization for success in the future.
Correct คุณผู้ชมคะเราได้พูดกันไปถึงนะคะเรื่อง strategy นะคะมากมายหลายอย่างเลยทีเดียวกับการเริ่มต้นทำธุรกิจ ที่อาจารย์กรับพูดออกมานะเขาบอกว่าการทำธุรกิจนะคะต้องมองถึงมุมมองของ customer ด้วยนะคะไม่ใช่ว่าเราชอบอะไรเราก็ทำแบบนั้นก็ต้องเปลี่ยนไปมองในมุมมองของคนซื้อบ้างนะคะว่าเขาชอบแล้วก็ต้องการอะไรแล้วก็พูดไปแล้วเกี่ยวกับ strategy แต่ว่าช่วงหน้าน่าสนใจกว่านี้อีกเพราะว่าเราจะมีการพูดคุยกันถึงเรื่อง innovation กับการคิดถึงเรื่องธุรกิจใหม่ๆมาดูซิว่ามีข้อดีข้อเสียยังไงกับการทำธุรกิจแบบนั้นบ้างช่วงหน้ากลับมาพบกันค่ะ